Ohio State advanced with a 28-14 victory over 5th-seeded Texas at the Cotton Bowl on Friday. Thursday night, Notre Dame nipped 6th-seed Penn State 27-24 at the Orange Bowl. NFL wildcard action over the weekend on Saturday. The Texans beat the Chargers 32-12. The Ravens beat the Steelers 28-14. Sunday, the Bills obliterated the Broncos 31-7. The Eagles 22-10 over the Packers. The Commanders beat the Buccaneers 23-20. Tonight, the Vikings face the Rams in Glendale, Arizona. The game was moved from LA due to the wildfires. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with it. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Progressive presents Renters MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Emily Neal's 70-inch TV. Because after watching her second-grade students yell at each other for hours, there's nothing Emily enjoys more than watching super-rich housewives also yell at each other. Why? Because those women are not her responsibility. And that's why her TV is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
I feel like I'm constantly cleaning hair off my bathroom floor. At least my Swiffer Sweeper makes it easy. Sweeper heavy-duty dry cloths have ultra-thick pads to trap and lock hairs, like a hair magnet. And when I'm finished cleaning up my hair, Sweeper takes care of his too. Now the hair's gone, all thanks to Swiffer. Try Swiffer Sweeper heavy-duty dry cloths. I promise you'll love them or your money back. And also try Swiffer Sweeper Wet to make quick work of tough, sticky messes.
No way football is played in the fall and winter.
Because the hits don't hurt as much when you're numb. Get the lowdown on all the sports action coming up right here.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
A new week kicks off right here, right now, live on Football Full Circle. That's FFC, all across the SportsGrid Radio Network and Sirius XM Channel 159. He is the mastermind of the pigskin. That is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. A Monday to sit back in the armchair and look back on the first round of the NFL postseason. Wild card weekend, a reaction to the 5 games we have already seen in the opening round of the NFL playoffs, and our Monday night football finale tonight between the Rams and the Vikings to earn that last spot in the divisional round to set the stage for one of the best weekends of football each and every season. And also, since the last time Lisi Guy and I spoke here on FFC, a national championship in the college football playoff has been decided as well. Ohio State and Notre Dame exactly 1 week from today. How things went down on a Friday night in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl and what we can expect next week. So much to get to here, Lisi Guy, up until 1 p.m. Eastern.
Oh, yeah, the games, as far as the college games, were fantastic. The Penn State-Notre Dame game, and obviously Ohio State and Texas. And, you know, even though there were some blowouts in terms of the NFL, if you're gambling and you're playing the spread perspective, there's always money on the line. So they went right down to the wire, anytime touchdowns. And a great game last night in terms of Tampa Bay. Washington wins it 23-20. The upset, we saw a couple of those outside of Washington. C.J. Stroud in Houston stepped up, and right now we have a great game tonight. You know, even though it's on a neutral field, anything can give with the Rams and Vikings a little bit later. Should be fireworks for Monday night action.
Our first 4 games of the 5 that we had during Wild Card Weekend, a doubleheader on Saturday, 3 more on Sunday. Those first 4, home field advantage, even if you were a home underdog, was crucial in the first 4 games, all decided by at least 12 points, where the home team did cover by margin at home. It wasn't until Sunday Night Football that we finally saw a game decided by a single score, and a road team went outright in the opening round of the postseason. Joe, that's where we begin Sunday Night Football in Tampa. This 3 seed out of the NFC South, the Buccaneers, who won the divisional crown for a 4th consecutive season, against the 6th seed, the Washington Commanders, with a first-year head coach outside the nation's capital, Dan Quinn, and a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels. And as Jaden Daniels has done time and again throughout his first year of his NFL career, he has come up in the biggest spots with plenty of clutch moments. And yesterday, it was a doink for good. Zane Gonzalez from 37 yards out as time expired in regulation, off the right upright and in. A doink to the divisional round as Washington wins outright as a 3-point road dog in Florida, 23-30 over the Buccaneers. A total, Joe, of 51 and a hook. The highest of Wild Card Weekend stays well under.
Yeah, all the Sunday games trended to the under, right? So you saw that again last night. And, you know, as good of an effort it was for Jaden Daniels. And entering that game, Washington had won 5 straight by 7.6 points per game. Entering that matchup, you had Tampa Bay, winners of 6 of the last 7. As good as the offense looked at certain times, it's more about the defense, right? What Dan Quinn and what that defensive unit were able to do in terms of containing Mike Evans for the most part and containing Baker Mayfield, holding him to 185 passing yards. Granted, he throws 2 touchdowns, but you look at his average over the last 7 weeks of the regular season, he was averaging basically 285 passing yards per game, had thrown 17 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. So to contain him and hold him 100 yards less than what he was averaging over the second half of the season was a dominant defensive effort. And now this team is playing with house money. Granted, they overexceeded expectations. They get the road win. Now the sky's the limit. They're going to go to Detroit. Hey, you can never say never in terms of the injuries that Detroit has on the defensive side of the ball. With a quarterback that can scoot, maybe Washington is for real.
Yeah, they certainly seemed like it last night, Joe. And what Jaden Daniels has done is record history each and every week it is seen, becoming the 4th rookie quarterback to win a playoff game on the road, becoming the 2nd quarterback, rookie or veteran or otherwise, to, in a road playoff game, lead his team to a victory without turning the football over and without the special teams out there to record a punt, joining 2003 Peyton Manning back in his days in Indianapolis. More history for Daniels, who totaled more than 300 total yards last night. Also tossed his 13th touchdown in the 4th quarter or OT this year to Terry McLaurin on 4th and 2 from the Bucs 5 that gave Washington some life in that 4th quarter, gave them a 20-17 lead over the Buccaneers. A couple of costly mistakes, though, Joe, made by Baker Mayfield and the Bucs in that 4th and final quarter. On an end around to Jalen McMillan, a faulty exchange that led to a fumble in the touchdown drive and touchdown throw from Daniels to McLaurin. And then, as Tampa was trying to answer, about 5 minutes remaining in the 4th quarter, 2nd and 1 from Washington's 12-yard line. They're trying to just pick up a first down to maybe score a touchdown to take the lead. Unable to do so. Stifled twice. Results in a field goal that tied the game and allowed the Commanders to come down the other end of the field and ice out the game with Jaden Daniels utilizing his legs for Zane Gonzalez to deliver. Washington wins outright as a road underdog. The reward for the Commanders, a road trip to Detroit next Saturday night, against the 1 seed in the NFC. Lisa Guy, of course, will continue our wild card reactions from Wild Card Weekend in the NFL, but some big breaking news right now in the National Football League as well. Mike McCarthy, whose contract comes to a close tomorrow with the Dallas Cowboys, but there have been some reports leading up to this week that things were looking positive. McCarthy would get an extension or a new deal in Dallas. Not the case. The Cowboys are moving on from Mike McCarthy. That breaking news within the last 2-3 minutes here around National Football League circles.
Yeah, unbelievable, right? And he wasn't even granted the interview for the Chicago Bears. That was supposed to be like, the sign that potentially he would be there in Big D for 2025. But it's the right choice. I mean, if Jerry Jones is serious about getting the Dallas Cowboys back on track, back to prominence, you fire Mike McCarthy. He hasn't shown you that he can elevate this team to the next level. And it doesn't matter that Dak Prescott was hurt in terms of the middle of the regular season this year. This team was not performing. They hadn't won a home game with Dak Prescott under center this year. Think about that. That's unbelievable when you just think about how dominant they were in terms of the previous 2 seasons. 16-0 at home. Mike McCarthy ran this program right into the dirt. So if they're going to get back to the top of the NFC East and potentially challenge for an NFC championship, it's the right move, Ben.
Normally, the Monday that has all the coaching news is the Monday after the regular season, not the Monday following Wild Card Weekend or still in the midst of Wild Card Weekend. But as Tom Pelissero of NFL Network shares, the sides could not agree on a length of contract, and McCarthy decided to pursue other opportunities. After 5 years in Dallas, the bookend of those 5 years, each with double-digit losses, but sandwiched in between 3 years of 12 wins, 2 divisional crowns. But ultimately, Joe, Dallas, as other coaches before and maybe after Mike McCarthy will experience, never able to reach the conference championship game, something that has eluded the Cowboys since their last Lombardi Trophy, of course, that final Super Bowl championship back in 1995. A little bit more on now the Cowboys head coaching search. In the 7 head coaching vacancies that we had, with only 6 remaining vacant, some coaching news. It's Wild Card Weekend. We still got a Monday night game to preview and a little bit of college football. A lot to do today on Football Full Circle.
4 out of 5 scientists agree it's smarter to be on SportsGrid, and we're pretty sure that one scientist is still a virgin.
He just gives that vibe.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Firefighters scrambled Sunday to make further progress against wildfires that have destroyed thousands of homes and killed 16 people in the Los Angeles area. With your news flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. Forecasters again warned of dangerous weather with the return of strong winds this week. At least 16 people were missing, and authorities said that number was expected to rise. The National Weather Service issued red flag warnings for severe fire conditions through Wednesday, with sustained winds of 50 miles per hour and gusts in the mountains reaching 70 miles per hour. The South was slowly thawing Sunday after a freezing winter storm shut down schools, cut power, and canceled or delayed flights. Crews worked furiously, and by Sunday morning, power had been restored to parts of North Carolina and South Carolina, where tens of thousands of customers lost electricity for at least a few days. Power was back for 97% of the retail customers served by Georgia Power, the state's largest utility, which serves all but 4 of the state's 159 counties, according to Duke Energy. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Progressive presents Renter's MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Tom Kelly's carbon fiber mountain bike. Because more than riding his carbon fiber mountain bike, Tom loves telling people about his carbon fiber mountain bike. Friends, family, even a local barista knows about his carbon fiber mountain bike. And that's why Tom's carbon fiber mountain bike, if you haven't heard about it, is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
That spice is 10 out of 10. Would recommend. Hi, my name is Khadijah, and a little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich is that spicy kick of the chicken. It's just the right amount of heat, and it gets me excited. And then, pro tip, add that cilantro lime sauce. It cools it down. If the sandwich is at 100, the cilantro lime takes it to 200. It makes me want to, tell all my friends and family.
Order a Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich and a Diet Dr. Pepper on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonial.
There's something you should know and always remember.
SportsGrid does not increase luck.
We're your unfair advantage for the latest sports gaming information. If you're looking for luck,
Go find a horseshoe.
this is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. He is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. Normally the Monday following the regular season finale weekend around the National Football League is where big coaching news occurs, but that was also the case in the last few moments out of Dallas. The Cowboys and Mike McCarthy at a point in the last couple of days trending toward, Joe, what seemed to be a new contract for McCarthy to return next season as the Cowboys head man. That is no longer the case. NFL Network's Tom Pelissero reporting in the last 10 minutes that the Cowboys and McCarthy are moving on from one another, unable to agree on a contract length, and thus Mike McCarthy now a coaching free agent. We had 6 head coaching vacancies last week. Sunday afternoon, we got the news that Mike Vrabel, as we kind of expected, was hired as the new head coach of the New England Patriots in a sham search that New England had put together. Obviously, it was in the inner workings that Vrabel was going to become the head coach for the Pats, at least in the last few weeks. So now 6 head coaching vacancies as Dallas enters the fold, and Mike McCarthy now has already garnered some interest from the Saints and the Bears, is a free agent.
Yeah, I mean, McCarthy to the Saints, Ben, really isn't that bad of a move for them. And the reason why I say that is, just because of how much of a rebuild that is, I could see a veteran coach like McCarthy going there because of the expectation not being immediately, hot, right? Like Dallas Cowboys is like the New York Giants. They're a polarizing organization. They're a win now type of team. And whoever they hire needs to step in and really change the culture and really get this team back to playoff prominence. Can they do it in year one with the talent that they have? I guess only time will tell. But I'll throw out potentially 3 names that I believe will be mentioned in terms of this gig. I told you Kellen Moore, the former offensive coordinator with the Eagles now. You look at the success that he's had with Nick Sirianni and obviously all of those playmakers. He's young enough. He's a yes guy. How about Deion Sanders potentially to Big D? If anybody loves Jerry Jones and vice versa, it's Deion, right, in terms of that situation. And how about John Gruden? I'll throw out that name, another veteran coach that potentially, he went to Parcells, he went to McCarthy, he went to Jason Garrett. John Gruden looking to get back into coaching, it wouldn't be a bad fit in terms of the Dallas Cowboys organization.
Joe, I think you are onto something, at least in terms of what the next head coach at Big D will be required to do. And that is often bow in terms of power to the owner in Jerry Jones. He does not like people to stand up to him. It is often why you can kind of confuse it with loyalty, why he keeps coaches around. Jason Garrett was there for nearly a decade. Mike McCarthy 4 or 5 years, and almost seemingly, Joe, was going to get a new deal despite his current contract expiring tomorrow in a lack of success. Since Barry Switzer led the Dallas Cowboys to the last Super Bowl championship in 1995, the Cowboys have now had 6 head coaches, including McCarthy. All 6 have failed in even bringing the Cowboys back to an NFC championship game. 13 playoff trips in the last 3 decades since 1995, and never passed the division around. Never even playing in a conference championship tilt, let alone winning said conference crown or playing once more in a Super Bowl. Joe, there was obviously some reports last week, also from NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, about multiple NFL organizations reaching out to Bill Belichick and inquiring on his status, if he remained committed to Carolina in college football. Is there any chance now with a Cowboys opening, they would make a call to Bill?
I mean, there's a slight chance. I mean, again, would he, if Bill was even thinking about getting back into head coaching, I mean, would he want to go in terms of the 2 teams that were linked to potentially him, Dallas and Las Vegas with Tom Brady as former star quarterback, where, they would be reunited? If he would turn that down, I don't think he would be open to Dallas in terms of that situation. The reason why I say that is I don't know if Bill Belichick, and I know that they get along, right? Supposedly him and Jerry. But would Jerry give Bill Belichick the keys to the organization the way, potentially he did with Bill Parcells years ago? I don't know. If he didn't do it over the past few years, why is he going to do it now? And if Bill Belichick really wanted that, then why didn't he just hold out? We'll see what transpires. Again, I'd say about 10%. I think if you're Jerry Jones, I think he goes more the route of Deion or potentially Kellen Moore first.
We'll see. Deion Sanders, at least according to a team meeting video yesterday, seems rather happy in Boulder. He's got his quarterback of the future in terms of Juju Lewis. We shall see. Deion did say yesterday in the first team meeting as the Buffs are back in Boulder in the post-Shiloh and Shador and Travis Hunter era, his kids, if you will, that he was happy just to be a coach and not having to be a dad. But, of course, big lights, big stage, big opportunity for a guy that loves those moments. It will be a very compelling coaching job because it is still a very notable one the Dallas Cowboys. Now 6 head coaching vacancies, Joe, around the NFL. The Patriots hire Mike Vrabel, a guy with the team that worked as a defensive assistant, of course, was a linebacker on 3 Lombardi-winning teams in New England, and a successful head coach in 6 years in Nashville with the Titans. But here are the 6 head coaching vacancies at this moment. The Jets, the Jaguars, the Raiders, the Cowboys, the Bears, and the New Orleans Saints. So 6 vacancies around the NFL. Joe, do you even think the Dallas Cowboys job is the most intriguing, alluring for a head coaching candidate?
No, I don't. I mean, obviously, it's almost like coaching in New York, right? But again, if you're asking me if I was a head coach, where would I want to go in regards to talent and the ability to win immediately? I would say Jacksonville, and I told you this before, right? Why? Winnable division. You have young players there. Now, granted, I'm not in love with Trevor Lawrence, but you look at all those playmakers: Brian Thomas, Kirk, Ingram. There's the ability to win now immediately and get back to 9 or 10 wins in year number 1. So I would say no.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that Dallas is a ton of pressure, and I'm not sure it's the best run organization either. Plenty more on FFC. Back to Wild Card Weekend next.
There's smart.
And there's not smart.
Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Keep it here.
And win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
1974, Super Bowl VIII at Rice Stadium in Houston, Texas. The Miami Dolphins beat the Minnesota Vikings 24-7, easily covering the 6.5-point spread. Game MVP Larry Zonka rushed for 145 yards, and Miami quarterback Bob Greasy was just 6 of 7 as the Dolphins ran for 196 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Purple People Eaters.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
University of Bristol scientists have found humans working with robots trust them more when their movements are synchronized. Humans and robots work efficiently and actually build trust when the robots mirrored human movements. However, when that trust is damaged by a robot making a mistake, it's a nonverbal early warning sign that when trust between humans and robots is lost, their work together may not be as successful. Follow me at Capalbo on X and stay tuned to the Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Carver and Lisi.
All right, Hotshot. You want to talk smack with your partner? Yeah, I'm talking to you. Look up and look at me. You're saying that I'm not into it? I laid this 7.5 with Illinois. Now what are you going to say? At least my money's where my mouth is. You want to talk all this garbage? Penn State sucks in hoops. I look at numbers. Old school gut. A little pinch between your cheek and gum.
It's Carver and Lisi with Mike Carver and Joe Lisi. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. On the SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go,
there you are.
Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you.
So now you can get the winning edge
anywhere, even while the wife's talking to you.
if you've got an earbud.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. He is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. Time to look back on Wild Card Weekend and everything that we saw from Saturday and Sunday before a Monday night finale tonight out in Glendale, Arizona. It's between the Rams and the Vikings. So, Joe, we talked Sunday Night Football. The Commanders went outright as a field goal underdog by a field goal that doinked off the right upright and in from 37 yards out. The Commanders, the 6th seed, will head to Detroit on Saturday night, the 1 seed in the NFC. The Lions, a hefty favorite, laying 8.5 points. How about the other NFC game midway through our Sunday tripleheader in Philadelphia? A dominant defensive effort out of the Eagles. stifles the Green Bay Packers. Philly wins 22-10, covering as a 5.5-point home favorite at the Link. Joe, a total of 45 and a hook, stays well under. The Eagles set the tone from the very jump, and I mean it. Opening kick return of the game. Keyshawn Nixon for Green Bay gets absolutely lit up. Ball was on the turf. Who recovered? The refs maintained it was Philadelphia. 3 plays later, the Eagles score a touchdown and never look back. Defense was great for the Birds, forcing a total of 4 turnovers, including that opening kickoff return fumbled by Nixon. The Eagles win big by 12, covering as a 5.5-point favorite. Joe, what was your main takeaway out of Philly?
Yeah, dominant defense and the best team, I believe, in terms of the NFC. Now, we'll see if they can get there in terms of an NFC championship, but I was very impressed in terms of the defensive side of the ball. We know the talent that they have, not just in terms of the front end, but the back end now with the addition of Cooper DeJean and all of those playmakers, Darius Slay in the secondary, right? They stepped up. They contained Jordan Love in the passing attack. You mentioned the 4 turnovers, Zach Bond, and that's linebacker crew just stepped up and just dominated at every point. This was a physical game, too. They beat up the Green Bay wide receiver corps. Jaden Reed went down. Dontavian Wicks went down. Dubes went down. Romeo Dobbs. They all went down in regards to the second half of that matchup. So that's how physical Philadelphia played. That once they set the tone 7-0, they never really were threatened. I know Josh Jacobs got the touchdown run to put them within striking distance of 16-10. But outside of that, Jordan Love was pedestrian. That offense for Green Bay was pathetic. Matt LaFleur had a terrible game plan offensively, and I expected a much better offensive output. But credit Philadelphia, best team in the NFC based off of what we saw up until this point. Now we'll see if it plays out the rest of the way.
Joe, it's a defense under Vic Fangio that has been playing like this really all year long. The best overall defense in the NFL, second best scoring defense at the end of the regular season. The Birds got off to a 2-2 start, then won 12 of their last 13 to end out the regular season. Now this game, make it 13 of 14, and in those 14 games, under 9 times. Philly did exactly what it needed to do defensively. Offensively, Joe, not much there for the Eagles on Sunday. Jalen Hurts seeing his first action since early in Week 16 when he left that game against the Commanders with a concussion. 13 of 21, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Philly certainly winning the turnover battle on Sunday afternoon. Also 36 yards on the ground. Saquon Barkley, efficient and elite as always. 25 carries, 119 rushing yards. The Packers actually had more first downs and more total yardage than that of Philadelphia's offense, but the Eagles still cruise to a victory. Joe, anything concerning you about the Birds' offensive display? Nothing about the defense, but the offensive display out of Philly on Sunday afternoon.
Not really. Again, Saquon was dominant when he had to be. Goddard was an added addition. You saw him score the touchdown. He's back in that lineup. And I know a lot's been made of A.J. Brown reading the book and Jalen Hurts at times inconsistent. But when they had to turn it on, they turned it on. This is a dominant offense and defensive line team. And again, they play like that the rest of the way. I still think they're going to be in the Super Bowl. I honestly believe that. So, the only thing right now that can, maybe hinder the Philadelphia Eagles is themselves right now. People will say that about Baltimore. I'll say that about the Eagles. I just think they're the most dominant team. And when you win 13 of the last 14 games, Ben, I mean, come on. The only game they lost down the stretch was when Jalen Hurts got hurt and Kenny Pickett came in, and they should have won that game.
Right. Absolutely so, Joe. That was not a fully healthy game for the Eagles by any means. Credits to the Commanders as well. We'll talk about the NFC playoff picture. We'll talk about what is still at stake. And, of course, look at the AFC on the other side of the break here on SportsGrid Radio.
The winning edge.
You've got it.
But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us.
But we're working on that.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. AFC wildcard action on Saturday. It'll be the Texans hosting the Chargers. Then the Ravens are home against the Steelers. On Sunday, the Bills host the Broncos in AFC action. Then NFC action gets underway with the Eagles at home against the Packers and the Commanders visiting the Buccaneers. Change of plans for the Rams and Vikings wildcard game this Monday night. The game has been moved to Glendale, Arizona due to wildfires in the Los Angeles area. The league said in a statement that the decision was made in consultation with public officials, the participating clubs, and the NFLPA. The 10-7 Rams had earned home field advantage by winning the NFC West. The 14-3 Vikings are the NFC's number 5 seed. Meanwhile, Rams wide receiver Demarcus Robinson has been charged with 1 count of misdemeanor DUI. The charge comes after he was arrested for suspicion of DUI on November the 25th by the California Highway Patrol. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Now's the time to shop limited-time doorbuster deals during Pro Savings Days at Lowe's. Save $50 on a Little Giant King Combo 6-foot ladder. Was $199, now $149. Plus, save $100 on a DeWalt XR 20-volt Power Stack 5-amp-hour battery. Was $199, now $99. Get these can't-miss deals now before they're gone. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Doorbusters valid 1/13 through 1/15. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
My doctor told me my cholesterol is borderline, so I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste-free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula, cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
You're listening to SportsGrid.
Spreading the winning edge far and wide.
Terrestrial, internet, TV, satellite, and don't forget our mobile app.
Face it.
The winning edge is everywhere.
Somewhere there's a squirrel frustrated he can't get a phone.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. So the NFC playoff picture as we advance to the divisional round has almost been cleared up. One final game on this Monday. We'll break down for you up next between the Rams and the Vikings. But we know the Commanders will head to Detroit to take on the 1 seed, the Lions, on Saturday night. The winner of tonight's game between the Vikes and the Rams will head to Philadelphia next Sunday afternoon. Joe, we know everything in the AFC because our first 3 games of Wild Card Weekend all on that side of the league. Our first game on Sunday of our triple header in Western New York between the Bills and the Broncos. Lisi, there were some that thought Denver might keep this game within margin. 7.5-point spread. And certainly in the first 2.5 minutes, Troy Franklin from his college quarterback and now his NFL quarterback, Bo Nix, 43-yard touchdown strike. The Broncos were up by a touchdown early and then never scored again. Buffalo did score, 31 points to be exact, as the Bills blow out the Broncos 31-7. Buffalo covers as a 7.5-point home favorite. They remain perfect in Orchard Park this year. And Joe, perfect in wild card games the last 5 seasons. A perfect 5-0 on wild card weekend since 2020.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of what I expected. I said it on Pro Football Today. I really believe that Buffalo was the right side.
Sure.
The fact that it went from 9.5 down to 7.5, I wasn't fazed. I actually laid this 7.5 yesterday. You were talking about a Buffalo team that entered that game winning 8 games at home by an average margin of victory of 16.6 points per game. They had a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix and a road team in terms of Denver that wasn't that great. They were 4-5. Straight up in terms of road environments. Granted, they beat teams like Tampa Bay, the New York Jets, and New Orleans in terms of road environments, but you look at the better teams that they had faced, especially playoff caliber teams, even though Seattle didn't win or make it to the playoffs. They were an above average team. They lost. They lost to Kansas City. They lost to other teams on the docket that were playoff Cincinnati, right? They just never stepped up against better competition on the road. And you actually plateaued with Denver. I didn't think that Bo Nix would have that much success through the air. Granted, he started fast, but they made second half adjustments, and they wore down just a team that, you know, was up against it. And again, Buffalo, to me, is the best team in the AFC. Now, can they put it together to knock off Baltimore and potentially Kansas City? in back-to-back weeks, that will remain to be seen. But I still believe in Josh Allen, and I believe that Buffalo, if I had a bet, is the best team in the AFC right now.
Yeah, and we'll talk about those AFC title odds in just a moment in what is going to be a marquee matchup to end out what many consider the best weekend of football. That is the divisional round in Western New York next Sunday evening between the Bills and the Ravens. But Josh Allen was dynamite against Denver yesterday. 20 of 26, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, 46 more yards on the ground. James Cook, 23 carries, $120 and a score. 17 total rushing touchdowns this year for James Cook, who went over the 1,000-yard marker for a second consecutive season. But even last year, Joe, in all 17 games, Cook scored 2 total rushing touchdowns. This year, he has hit pay dirt 17 total times, including the postseason. Buffalo 9-5 against the spread as the favored side this season. A very successful year for Denver, there is no doubt, exceeding expectation in year number 2 in Mile High under Sean Payton with a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. But, Joe, there's different levels to all of this by the time you get to the playoffs. Even the good teams that have earned the right to be a playoff team might not be on that upper tier, the upper echelon, the elite team that you need to be to actually contend for a conference crown or a Lombardi trophy. Denver was an underdog 5 times since week number 4 when the odds started to catch up. Maybe this Broncos team is better than the team we booked with a preseason win total of 5.5. The Broncos were 0-5 straight up and just 1-4 against the spread. Still a lot of optimism for the Broncos to build on entering 2025 with Bo Nix. But it will be Buffalo in Baltimore on Sunday night to end out the divisional round because, Joe, the Ravens did what many expected them to do, and that's dispatch rather easily of their divisional foe, the Pittsburgh Steelers, on Saturday night. Baltimore wins 28-14, easily covering as an 8.5-point favorite. A total of 43.5 stays under. Joe, even the 2-touchdown margin that Baltimore won by at home is not exactly how this game played out. The Ravens were in control from the very start, taking the fight, the physicality, and the dominance to their divisional foe, where these games are often close, competitive, and hard-nosed, only really on one side. The Flock led 21-zip at the half. Derrick Henry had a 44-yard rushing touchdown midway through the third quarter to ice it. The Steelers really never had a chance on Saturday in the Charm City.
No, again, this was a gutless effort, and we talked about the Steelers. They lost 5 games down the stretch, right? They had lost those games entering the game against Baltimore, Ben, by 13 points per game. In all of the losses, the last 5, they never scored more than 17 points. And when you're up against it, I don't care that they waited down 21-0 to open up the offense. Oh, great. Russell Wilson throws for 270 and 2 touchdowns. But you already lost the game in the first half. I mean, granted, Baltimore and Buffalo is going to be dynamic atmosphere. It's going to be a great game. And Baltimore is one of the hottest teams. They had won now 5 straight entering this matchup against the Bills. They dominated Pittsburgh. They did it in week 15. When you have Derrick Henry pounding the rock for $186 and 2 touchdowns, and as a team, you average 6 yards per carry, and Pittsburgh only averages 2.8. I mean, come on. What are we talking about? I mean, it just a dominant performance. Again, both sides of the ball. Credit the Ravens. They dominated a gutless Pittsburgh Steelers team, and that's that.
Pittsburgh ends the year losing 5 straight, their last 4 in the regular season. This one in a lopsided effort against their divisional foe, who they also got blitzed by back in Week 17 to lose any hope of the AFC North, 34-17. In those 2 games, Joe, the Ravens were a touchdown favorite or greater, which you do not often see in this bitter rivalry between AFC North foes, the Steelers and the Ravens. And Baltimore covered in each, won each game by 14 points at least, an average margin of 15.5. There's a lot of soul-searching I think the Steelers have to do this offseason. A consistent team, a successful team. We know the story by now, 18 years under Mike Tomlin, never a losing record. Never fewer than 8 wins in a season. Pittsburgh has made the postseason 4 of the last 5 years. But Joe, the last playoff win for the Steelers was 2016, which was also conveniently the last year Pittsburgh even played in an AFC championship game. there is some conversation right now in the Steel City after nearly 2 decades together. Is it time for a divorce? Is it time to say, hey, thanks for your services on both sides, Tomlin and the Steelers franchise, and part ways to try to figure something out to elevate the ceiling of this Steelers franchise? Because, Joe, 25 organizations around the NFL would take 20 consecutive winning seasons, as we know it basically under Mike Tomlin. But the Steelers are not any other organization. They are judged by Super Bowls. They set that own standard of success of winning Lombardi trophies, and flat out, Tomlin really hasn't cut it in the last decade.
No, he hasn't. You know, he'd be a great addition to the Jets that never win anything, right? Because that's when we talk about the expectations of success. And you can actually make the correlation now. Recent. I don't want to talk about his body of work because he took the team to 2 Super Bowls and won 1. But you can make the correlation. It's the same thing with Penn State in terms of college football and James Franklin. They beat teams they're supposed to and never step up against elite opponents like Michigan and or Ohio State or Notre Dame, right? I mean, I'm just saying, that's what the Pittsburgh Steelers are right now. It's great to be a 10-win organization, but they've plateaued under Mike Tomlin and can't elevate to challenge the likes of Baltimore or even the Kansas City Chiefs.
Joe Lisi just plowing over the Commonwealth today in Pennsylvania. Have a day, Mr. Lisi. Have a day. But I do agree, sometimes you are hindered by your own success. We'll continue the conversation next on Football Full Circle.
We're not saying every SportsGrid listener is a legend, but you might start thinking about who's going to play you in the movie.
Just saying.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Firefighters scrambled Sunday to make further progress against wildfires that have destroyed thousands of homes and killed 16 people in the Los Angeles area. With your news flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. Forecasters again warned of dangerous weather with the return of strong winds this week. At least 16 people were missing, and authorities said that number was expected to rise. The National Weather Service issued red flag warnings for severe fire conditions through Wednesday, with sustained winds of 50 miles per hour and gusts in the mountains reaching 70 miles per hour. The South was slowly thawing Sunday after a freezing winter storm shut down schools, cut power, and canceled or delayed flights. Crews worked furiously, and by Sunday morning, power had been restored to parts of North Carolina and South Carolina, where tens of thousands of customers lost electricity for at least a few days. Power was back for 97% of the retail customers served by Georgia Power, the state's largest utility, which serves all but 4 of the state's 159 counties, according to Duke Energy. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you get coverage options based on how much you want to pay for car insurance. And then you decide how to spend the rest of your money, because you're in charge. And right now, you're going to pay for groceries. But you decide what groceries. Just keep in mind you're running out of dishwashing soap. But you decide if you're going to buy that soap. Just those dishes won't clean themselves, will they? Remember, with Progressive's Name Your Price tool, we'll help you find coverage at a fair price. And then you're in charge. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
My doctor told me my cholesterol is borderline, so I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste-free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula, cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important.
That's where we come in.
SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning
more often.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle. Wild Card Weekend continues in the National Football League. The first game of 6 in the opening round of the NFL postseason on a Saturday in Houston. Well, for the second consecutive year, the Texans started the first round in that very familiar time slot of 4:30 p.m. Eastern time on a Saturday afternoon, booked as a 2.5-point home underdog as the champions out of the AFC South against the top wild card team. Last year, it was Joe Flacco in the Browns. This year, it was Justin Herbert and the Chargers, but the result was the same. The Texans winning outright as a home underdog to clinch a divisional round berth in the AFC against the top seed in the conference. The Texans, Joe, win 32-12, blasting the Bolts at home in H-Town. Again, outright as a 2.5-point underdog, are only over so far in the NFL postseason, trickling over 41.5.
Yeah, I expected that to happen. I was on the over and I was on Houston. And, you know, it didn't look like that in terms of the first quarter. LA jumps out to a 6-0 lead. They're dominating in terms of running the football with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. They can't convert in terms of red zone opportunities. And then all of a sudden, that one play for C.J. Stroud where he fumbled the football, broke contain, kept the drive alive, seemed to change the whole complexity and momentum for the Houston Texans. They score on a big play for Nico Collins, right? And then once they took the lead, the defensive front seven took over. Yeah. Will Anderson and that defense pinned their ears back. They held LA then to 2.8 yards per carry, running the football, and 3 of 11 in terms of third down opportunities. And once they had the double-digit lead and Justin Herbert was able to, force to throw from behind, they picked them off, pick sixes. They changed the whole complexity and dominated from start to finish. That was a great defensive effort by D'Amico Ryans. I will say this. That's what you expected out of Houston this year. They were very inconsistent in the middle part of the season, and they already played Kansas City earlier in the year. That was a very competitive game. That was the Tank Dell game where he got hurt. They play that way on Saturday. They're going to be in that 8.5-point number with the Chiefs in Arrowhead.
Yeah, that game, week 17, no doubt about it, Lisa Guy. The Chiefs are north of a touchdown favorite against the Texans in the first game of the divisional round. Again, very familiar time spot for the Houston Texans, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. C.J. Stroud wasn't all pretty on Sunday, but did enough when it mattered. 282 for a touchdown and an interception. Also 42 yards on the ground. The third most in his 2-year NFL career, 112 of the 282 to his top target in Nico Collins. And you can see why the offseason acquisition of Joe Mixon is so critical for this Houston offense. 25 carries, 106 yards, and a score. He was the anchor, Joe, the powerful anchor to ice that game away. But now to the Chargers. Justin Herbert only has 2 playoff games in his career, but they have been disastrous. In 2022, in Jacksonville, they cough up a 27-0 lead in the opening half to lose to the Jaguars, one of the largest deficits ever overcome in NFL playoff history. And Joe, on Saturday, he threw 4 interceptions in one game. He threw more interceptions on Saturday against the Texans than he did in 17 games in total in the regular season. He only threw 3 in 2024. The Chargers' last playoff win in 2018. Sometimes it feels as though whoever's the quarterback, whoever is the coach of this Chargers organization, they are cursed. Still, a successful season in year 1 under Jim Harbaugh, but a dismal playoff performance on Saturday, whichever way you cut it.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Yes, dismal performance, and Herbert has to answer some critics. He's 0-2 in terms of the playoffs, but again, first game they put up 30 points. Wasn't like Justin Herbert didn't perform well. It was more on Brandon Staley and that coaching decision. But again, he's going to have to step up. Do I put Justin Herbert, Ben, on the same level as Dak Prescott or potentially Lamar Jackson with the number of appearances up until this point? No, we'll see. I mean, Lamar, come on. He's expected to win the AFC Championship. And let's see him do it, and then I'll erase all of those concerns. But the point is this, year 1, Jim Harbaugh did a fantastic job. They overexceed expectations. They get to the playoffs. Now the stage is set. They need wide receiver help. They need some more help in terms of an edge rusher, I believe. Khalil Mack and that front seven a little aging for the most part and banged up. But solidify an elite running back. They get that. They're going to be there. But again, this was exactly what you wanted for Jim Harbaugh. Weed out the players that fit and don't fit, and the sky's the limit in terms of year 2 and year number 3.
Listen, it was a win total of only 8.5 in the preseason for the Bolts. They exceed that. They get to the playoffs as an 11-6 team. I think any criticism of Justin Herbert, though, in the postseason is justified. And Lamar Jackson trying to change those narratives, as is Dak Prescott. if he ever gets another opportunity. So, Joe, everything is set in the AFC for the divisional round. First on Saturday, the Chiefs host the Texans. Again, the 1 seed in the AFC. The Chiefs, a 7.5-point favorite, trying to make history to become the first ever back-to-back Super Bowl winner in the history of the NFL to even play in a third consecutive Super Bowl, let alone win a third Lombardi trophy. Lisi, quickly on the Texans and the Chiefs, it sounds like you think Houston at least keeps it a close game on Saturday in Arrowhead.
I do believe that. And again, now you saw the emergence of Nico Collins. Towards the end of the regular season, when he came back from the hamstring injury, he didn't look 100%. I just believe another time DeMeco Ryans' defensive-minded coach. Granted, the Chiefs are rested, but I'll take a shot with the 7.5. I'll say this, keep an eye out for the tight ends of Houston, whether it be Stover or Dalton Schultz. We've seen Kansas City struggle with tight ends throughout the regular season. That could be the added benefit for the Houston Texans on Saturday.
Yeah, it's interesting, Joe, when you look at this KC team as a large favorite this year, it has not been great. But, Joe, divisional round weekend will end with an all-time matchup. The Ravens, the Bills in Buffalo. It's basically a pick 'em right now. Who do you give the early edge?
I would still give it to the Bills because they're at home, but they have to play much better defensively against Derrick Henry.
299 yards for the Ravens on Saturday against the Steelers. Nearly that the first time these two teams played back in October. Plenty more on Football Full Circle next.
Luck is winning the lottery. Strategy is settling your divorce before cashing in the ticket.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and Sirius XM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Moneyline at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. That's 800-797-1292.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle. There's one final game to end out the opening round of the NFL playoffs and wild card weekend. Tonight in Glendale, Arizona, between the Rams and the Vikings. And, Joe, let's start with the location. Of course, the NFL made the decision late on Thursday to move this game, originally scheduled, of course, for the home of the Rams inside SoFi Stadium in L.A., out to the desert because of the ongoing and devastating tragic wildfires in the greater Los Angeles area. We send all of our love, our thoughts, everything that is necessary to the L.A. area and all of those affected by these tragic wildfires as they continue to rage on. Those first responders, the firefighters, fighting these things back and trying to save as many structures and lives as possible. We are thinking of you. So, Joe, with the location in Arizona, now we get to the actual football matchup. The Rams are still the home team. Technically tonight, Minnesota remains a road favorite. 2.5-point spread, total at 47 and a hook. Lisa Guy, how do you break down the game between the Vikes and the Rams tonight out in the desert?
Well, it is a rematch, right? 30-20 in the primetime game that they played. Rams did win that matchup as an underdog. You look at the matchup tonight, Minnesota's deserving of the 2.5-point number. And again, they have the more complete team. But in terms of this type of situation, I'm willing to roll the dice with a veteran quarterback in Matt Stafford and Sean McVay with a weaker rest for the most part, playing up against the Minnesota Vikings that potentially lost the momentum last week in terms of Detroit. And again, the best bet I have, so I lean to LA. I think it's a bounce back for obviously Stafford through the air, but I love the over. I do feel we throw caution to the wind if you're Minnesota. Sam Darnold has a huge number. I think he potentially goes through that, but give me the over. That's my best bet. I think we get this game into the mid-50s, Ben. Both quarterbacks will chuck.
Sam Darnold's number, Joe, 264.5. Matthew Stafford at 242 and a hook. Matthew Stafford did not play in Week 18 a weekend ago for the Rams, but in the 3 games that allowed LA to clinch the division against the Jets, the Niners, and the Cardinals, fewer than 200 yards for Stafford. But you would expect a better offensive output tonight. My key ingredient is Cooper Kupp, over 48.5 receiving yards. Lisa Guy, I bet this number, I think on Wednesday, about 5 days ago, with the Rams outright to win on the money line. Obviously, the change in location after a tumultuous and tragic week in Los Angeles is not great. But I do believe on an emotional night, the Rams are the better side. I really trust a young and improving defense for LA, and I don't think Sam Darnold is nearly as bad as he put on display in Detroit. I believe that was more an anomaly than anything else we had seen this season. But I ultimately just believe the Rams are the better side, but they will need balanced offensive production. Stafford, Kupp, Nacua, and Kyron Williams. Keep an eye on Tyler Higbee, the returning tight end for LA. Lisa, the total intrigues me. I think there will be some big live betting spots in this game. You guys will certainly see it on In-Game Live Game Day, covering it tonight for the Monday Night Football finale to Wild Card Weekend. I have a hard time believing that 5 of 6 games will stay under in the opening round of the postseason. The highest scoring game we have seen so far in terms of combined points, 44 in the first game of the weekend between the Chargers and the Texans. That was our only over in our highest scoring game. Like, that can't be the case when all is said and done tonight, right?
It's possible. It wouldn't shock me. I mean, the biggest thing in terms of the road teams to win these games, right, has been to the ability to run the football and sustain drives. And you look at the road teams, LA Chargers, Steelers, methodical for the most part type of offenses. You don't have that in terms of Minnesota. You have elite wide receiver talent with Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson and Hawkinson. And you have a quarterback that has thrown more than 35 touchdown passes in terms of Sam Darnold. So now you have the ability to stretch that defense over the top. And again, there is no tomorrow. So you might as well go down utilizing your best weapons in terms of a playoff type of situation if you want to move forward. And we'll see if both teams could do that. But I'm with you, Ben. I think it resembles similarly the first half of that matchup where they were chucking it all over the yard.
30-20, way back in week number 8, short week Thursday night game that really resurrected the Rams season. They won outright as a 2.5-point underdog at home against the Vikings, a total of 46.5. So very similar numbers did push to the over. Puka Nacua, 91.5, a yard higher than that of Justin Jefferson, 90 and a hook. When it comes to the receivers, take your pick of the litter. Huge component for Minnesota, Joe, in my estimation, the health and the production of Aaron Jones, 59.5, his rushing yards prop. He's Joe Lisi. I'm Ben Stevens. Football Full Circle is back tomorrow, noon Eastern time on SportsGrid Radio.
Now you've done it. You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. but we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.